This is the new fat boss. I wonder how much damage I could deal to him with Constellation Zero Mualani if I use her new artifact set and the new craftable weapon. Oh, it's over 400,000. Well, what about if I use Worth It and some food buffs? Okay, now it's over 1 million. That's actually insane. Alright, so if you're wondering, I've actually got early access to Mualani. Now, this is a creator experience server, so all content shown here is subject to change, and this will primarily be my first impressions video of this super cute surfer. In fact, usually I only talk about the new character's damage potential, but because Mualani has such a game-changing ability when it comes to traveling around, I think it's only fair this time around I fully cover her surfing as well. So this first impressions video will contain her C0 gameplay, exploration, meta teams, and my thoughts about her. Okay, starting off with some gameplay, I think the first most important thing I have to highlight here would be that I'm actually playing in World Level 9. Now, I'll probably make a separate video about all of the changes you can expect from World Level 8 to 9, but for this video, keep in mind most enemies will take around 2.5% less damage, so not a big deal when it comes to the numbers you can expect to see. However, the enemies themselves have become much more tanky, well, at least when it comes to world bosses. I've noticed a lot of them have around 50 to 55% more HP. So even though I didn't destroy the fatty boss here with that 1 million attack coming from Mualani, I believe he would have died if it was world level 8. Moving over, let's talk about power creeping. Basically, Mualani has an insane amount of critical rate. She gets 19.2% crit rate from her ascension, 5% by default like every other character, and then 40% critical rate from the new artifact set. So even without substats or weapon stats, she already has 64.2% critical rate, which is amazing to say the least. And yeah, the power creeping part comes from this new Obsidian Codex artifact set, which I'll talk about in a moment. But you know what's even better? The new 4-star craftable weapon, Ring of Yachi, I have no idea how to pronounce it. But basically, this is hands down her best in slot free-to-play option. There is also of course Worth It and her signature and even the Battle Pass catalysts, but I'll talk about them in depth when I release the ultimate guide video. And for now, I am mostly gonna showcase the damage with the new craftable weapon and throw in some Worth It clips as well. Now, starting off with her normal attacks, they're gonna hit like crap since all of her damage besides normal attacks scale with HP. However, just look at her spinning that arm wildly when she does her normals. Anyway, these attacks still serve an important function because she's a catalyst user, so it's always nice to have access to Hydra application. But moving over to her skill, this is the big kahuna of her entire kit. Press it and she summons her surfboard Sharky. In addition, a bar right next to her will appear, and it's called Night Soul Blessing. I mean, it has a few intricate details, but basically, just treat it like the same bar Wanderer obtains when he is in fight mode. Now, if she's not in Natlan region, after 6 seconds, this Night Soul bar runs out and she will exit her skill mode. But if she is inside Natlan and the bar runs out, she can start consuming this new resource bar at the bottom called Phlogiston, which is considered to be an advanced pyro energy because, you know, we're in Pyro Nation. Also, keep in mind, since she's consuming Night Soul points to stay on the surfboard, it's extremely easy to maintain that new artifact force set bonus, because as you can see here, the moment she jumps onto surfboard, she immediately gains that massive 40% critical rate. But continuing with the skill mode, press the normal attack and her surfboard Sharky will bite the enemies. This damage is actually considered to be normal attack damage, and without prepping, the damage is going to be kinda sad. However, you see these 3 little fishies next to her bar? Well, these stacks are called Wave Momentum, and if she moves close or through an enemy, she will tag them and gain 1 stack. Now, the same enemy can be tagged every 0.7 seconds, and if you obtain all 3 stacks, she can then unleash the most powerful normal attack, called Sharky's Surging Bite. And let me tell you, if you want to see big numbers, you're gonna want to play her in vaporized teams because, man, on average, by using this hardest hitting attack while in skill mode, the damage with a free-to-play build and a team that supports her vapes will range between 200,000 to over 1 million or even more damage. Also, notice when she moves through enemies, they also become tagged? Well, that's because when she does unleash her basic attacks with Sharky, the primary enemy that gets attacked will receive damage as usual. However, any other enemies who had the mark on them, these shark missiles will descend upon them and remove the mark. So, for example, we can see the Sharky biting this treasure hunter for 55k damage, but if I go back and also tag his other two buddies, then we can see everyone gets hit for about 46k damage. This is like a balancing thing. She can hit up to 5 enemies in AoE, but it will be slightly reduced damage when compared to single target. Now, how many surging bites she can deliver? Well, on single target, you should be able to do it 3 times. But it's not super easy, because when she delivers the bite, this small puffer spawns, and you really want to catch it, because it will restore that Night Soul energy she's using to ride Sharky, and this can happen up to 2 times per skill activation. So, tag the solo enemy 3 times, use bite, catch puffer, repeat this 1 more time again, and then just tag 3 more times and do the final bite. But against multiple enemies, it's gonna be pretty easy to deliver 3 bites, since you just run through all of them quickly, and then sometimes you can also deliver the 4th bite if you're quick enough. And then, if you're using her in Natlan region, well, Sharky can bite for almost indefinite amount of times, because, as I said, if she runs out of this bar, the phlogiston at the bottom will be consumed instead, and there are ways to restore it even mid-combat when exploring. Okay, finally, let's talk about her burst. It costs 60 energy, and it's a big dumb number producer, and in fact, it has probably one of the biggest HP multipliers in the game. Seriously, if I raise her burst to level 10, it's gonna be a massive 105% HP multiplier. So yeah, if she's in a team with someone like Mona or Farina, Animal Unit, and Pyro Applicator, you can easily create some clickbaity thumbnails and damage per screenshot. However, I would argue, if you are doing big numbers with food buffs and best supports, I mean, is that really a huge problem? Especially considering the enemies are much beefier in world level 9. So using everything at your disposal to save time and deliver big damage ASAP, in my opinion, is a pretty valid way to showcase a character this time around. What's also funny is that in reality, against a single target, Mualani will deliver 3 to 4 big attacks before you need to switch out, and that includes her burst. So literally, her entire damage kit depends on these 3 to 4 numbers. Obviously, if she's going up against multiple enemies, then it's a bit different, and even a whole lot more different if she's in Natlan, where you can just spam Sharky bites. In fact, let's talk about Natlan and exploration right now. So, I think it's fair to say Genshin finally got a mount system. Sort of. Look, I'm not gonna lie, the reason I've decided to include this whole segment was when I finally realized just how insanely fast the exploration is with Mualani. I think this is one of those rare times where you want to consider the unit's traveling capabilities. This already was kind of the case with Wanderer, but with Mualani, man, let me tell you, it's a whole different story. Well, at least if you're using her in Natlan. You see, she and I believe all the other Natlan units receive a massive buff for their traversal abilities when they are inside Natlan region. For example, if you sprint with her surfboard on water outside of Natlan region, it will last for about 4 seconds before the fun is over. But if you do this inside Natlan, guess what? She can keep on surfing for about half a minute before she dismounts. That's like 7.5 times longer duration. And that's because, first of all, the surfing duration will be prolonged for a longer period if she's on liquid. This buff also works outside of Natlan, but it's much weaker. Also, notice how I say liquid. Well, that's because she can also surf on the lava. She's the only one who can do it and cannot get hurt by it, which is already very unique. But if that's not enough, anytime you pick up a resource in Natlan, she will restore some phlogiston, and this can be done in the middle of surfing. So it's like picking up small pieces of gas. And there's even what I like to call gas stations, which you can find all over Natlan. You see this place right here? Just stand next to it and she restores phlogiston to fullest amount almost immediately. So essentially, this is a mount system with a couple of caveats, and it does only work best in Natlan region, and you do need to have Mualani to capitalize on this. So yeah, I'm not gonna lie, half of my enjoyment that came from exploring this region was mainly due to the stuff you can do with the surfboard and the speed it provides. And I mean, like, check this out. You can jump around with Sharky, which means I can easily scale over some of these obstacles like it's nothing, and it feels super fun. You can even bite mid-air. It's not efficient, but it does feel stylish and fun. Well, to me at least. And what's even crazier, you know when you're in the air or swimming and you cannot switch to another character? Yeah, this issue no longer exists if you're using Mualani. You see her portrait getting this breezy animation? Well, now you can switch to her and immediately jump onto the surfboard. It will have a bit less Night Soul than usual, but you can still consume Phlogiston afterwards, like usual. In fact, you can also just activate her skill too. Now, obviously, this only works in Natlan region yet again. However, I've also noticed Kachina has the same benefits like Mualani. So, for example, you can switch to her Beyblade during mid-climb, and you can ride her mount for a lot longer in Natlan. So I'm guessing this might be a unique buff for Natlan units. So yeah, ride on lava, on water, do jumps, recharge Phlogiston from resources and gas stations, basically go crazy with exploration. Most importantly, fight for a longer duration when in Natlan region. But outside of Natlan, nah, it's not super bad, but it's like 90% of lost potential. Okay, so the name of the game when it comes to building Mualani teams is Vaporize, Vaporize, Vaporize. But who can help this shark girl vaporize? Wait, that's the wrong shark. Well, the reality is, there's like 4 off-field pyro applicators. Xiangling is basically the best choice when you use Mualani in double hydro teams. So like, if you go with Mona or Farida, she will be able to help vaporize most of Mualani's attacks. Then there's Toma. His burst will apply pyro before Mualani's shark bite hits the enemy, so it's pretty easy to use them together. And then, surprisingly, Dia is actually pretty awesome with the Surfer Girl. She provides resistance to interruption, which by the way is relevant for Mualani, because even in her skill mode, she can possibly get knocked around. But in addition, the way Dia applies pyro can work well with someone like Nahida, who can then utilize burning reaction with tons of elemental mastery she will have. And then, believe it or not, Xinyan might be good as well, provided she's at least C2, so she can easily get out highest level shield, although it will stop applying pyro if it's broken, which can be a big sad moment for vape teams. But as for some team comps, honestly, I didn't choose a ton of them for this video, especially considering there are some technical limitations preventing me from using the Abyss on this server. So right now, I would say it's obvious that she thrives in vaporized teams because of her massive multipliers. But for specific teams, I really like Dia, Nahida, and Emily or Animo units. Nahida will provide a massive elemental mastery boost for Mualani, which is super relevant for strong vape reactions. And then if you go with Emily, she can deliver some nice off-field damage. But if you go with Animo unit like Kazuha or Sucrose, then of course, we get that big VV Shred debuff on enemies, so better hydro damage. Of course, you already saw that semi-free-to-play janky team of Mona, Sucrose, and Xiangling. This comp right here focuses on big numbers for mostly open-world content like farming world bosses. And there's also a bit of gambling involved if you use Widsith for that massive buff. Although, I would also say later down the line, the more Natlan characters come out, the better she will become because she does have this talent which states that she can obtain 1 stack of Wave Chaser exploit whenever the team triggers Night Soul Burst. And with 3 stacks at maximum, she can gain a massive 45% multiplier based on her HP for the burst attack. Now, Night Soul's burst is just a really fancy way of saying if there are Natlan units in the team, whenever anybody deals elemental damage, Night Soul burst is triggered, which is this white stuff you see on the screen. There is a cooldown how often you can trigger the Night Soul burst, so with 1 Natlan character it's 18 seconds, with 2 12 seconds, and with 1 9 seconds. So yeah, once you can build teams with multiple Natlan units when using Mualani, her burst will hit for a ton more damage within a single rotation. Now she just gains 1 stack basically always. There's also Kachina, which I'll talk about more in a video that's coming soon, but you can use her together with Mualani to boost her elemental damage and provide some off-field support. So a team of Xiangling, Sucrose, and Kachina could be decent. And also, even though I said you want vaporized teams, you can easily go for some mono hydro comps with Farina, for example, and a few more different comps. But I'll talk about this more in Mualani's guide video. So, what do I think about this girl from Pokemon Sun and Moon region? I think that this is the first time I care more about exploration capabilities than combat power. Don't get me wrong, she can hit for a ton of damage. She is definitely a very capable 5-star unit. But I'll be honest, I think this is the first time since Dragon Spine I've actually been excited about exploration. And it's not the region that I'm excited about, although Natlan so far looks absolutely gorgeous with many fun locations. But the fact that I can basically use a mount system to quickly beam around the locations and also fight enemies on the mount is a huge selling point for me. And it's ironic. I think I almost never mention new units' traversal capabilities, maybe besides Yalan, Wanderer, and Kirara, but even then, just a small piece in the video's timeline. However, with Mualani, if you really think about it, most of my videos are focused around determining the unit's value in the Spiral Abyss, which is like what now? A once-a-month activity for about 30 minutes? Well, it's gonna take more than a few hours to fully explore Natlan, and every new subsequent area that will be released. So for the next year basically, she's gonna be my mount system. Don't get any funny ideas, by the way. And I find that very exciting because you really need to experience yourself to understand how quickly things feel when you're using the surfboard. It's really interesting to see the balance that Hoyo devs are trying to strike here. Extreme exploration capabilities in Natlan region, super mediocre everywhere else, good damage output, and especially great bursty damage when using the right support units. Now, the most interesting part, Kachina and Kinich also have exploration abilities, and Kachina will be given away for free when the 5.0 update arrives. So after this video, expect to see Kachina's first impressions next, because I will compare her exploration capabilities to Mualani's and see if she's enough to explore Natlan in a speedy fashion. Anyway, hope you found this Mualani's video interesting. Again, I didn't want to go deep into details about her kit because I am leaving that for her ultimate guide video, which I'll be releasing the moment the 5.0 update is live. So make sure to leave a like on this video and don't forget to subscribe to my channel, which I'll be very grateful for. But yeah, thanks for watching and see you next time.